I'm Jared Fry, General Manager of Medina TV.
Hi, and I'm Jacqueline Rinksmeyer, Executive Director of the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce. The mission of the Chamber of Commerce is to serve our member investors and promote business interests through economic development, business advocacy, and member services, which benefits the Greater Medina community. The Chamber is funded by voluntary membership from the business community. It is a not-for-profit, nonpartisan business organization, and we do not receive tax dollars to operate the organization. The Chamber does not endorse candidates, but strives to educate the voters on both the candidates and the issues. And we are pleased to partner with Medina TV to bring these interviews to you. This program would not be possible without this collaboration. So thank you to our interviewer, Jared Fry, and our producer, Matt Tomick.
And as always, the views expressed in these interviews do not necessarily reflect those of Medina TV or the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce. We thank you for tuning in to the 2022 Candidates Forum and remind you to vote on November 8th. Joining us now in studio is Scot Stevenson, one of the candidates for the Court of Appeals 9th District. Scott, thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, a pleasure. First, for our residents and viewers at home, why don't you just take a few minutes and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. The quick who am I is currently I'm a magistrate at the Summit County Domestic Relations Court. There we hear divorces and child support cases, and I've been there for about 7 years now. And prior to that, I was a judge on the Common Pleas Court in Summit County. And there we heard felony murder trials, felony criminal trials, civil proceedings there. And prior to that, I was an attorney in my own private practice for 24 years. Started in Barberton in the Akron area. There I did cases that took me to pretty much every kind of court you can go to in the area. Domestic relations court, of course, for divorces and those issues. Probate court, where you go for when someone passes away or when there's an incompetent person in your family. Juvenile court, when there's issues with children. Common pleas court, which are higher criminal offenses and civil cases, municipal courts, which are lower civil cases and criminal cases, courts of appeals, which is where I'm running for now, which is where you go if you have a trial court case and you think there was a mistake made there, you then appeal to the Court of Appeals, and they review to see if they think that's accurate. In the Medina, Wayne, Summit, Lorain County area, all during that time. One of the things I was really happy to do during that time is I had a lot of pro bono cases through the Volunteer Legal Service Project. That was important to me. The person who believes in small government, I think it's important that we make our effort to contribute to helping other folks out in our society as best we're able. So I did that, and 3 times in 2004, 2018, and 2013, I was given the Pro Bono Attorney of the Year Award. And I was proud to receive those, and mostly happy to be working with people and helping people out in their cases too. So that was my general experience. When I was in my private practice, I had a goal to be a judge, so I took some part-time jobs to get training and experience in judicial work. I did a time in Cuyahoga Falls Mayor's Court where I did traffic magistrate work. I did traffic cases, OVIs, misdemeanor cases. I was also a hearing officer for the Bureau of Motor Vehicles for the state, where I heard disputes between dealer manufacturers and automobile dealers in Ohio. So if a manufacturer said, Company X, we don't think you're doing well in your sales, we want to cancel our contract, they'd have a hearing and a dispute about that. Or if a dealer wanted to move into another dealer's territory, there'd be a dispute about that. And there were a number of us who heard those cases for this state. And the first job I had was a small claims magistrate in Barberton Municipal Court, hearing small claims cases, usually disputes between contractors and homeowners, and trying to figure out who told the truth and how to balance all that. So that was very helpful and a good experience for me. I think based upon all that experience in time and how I've conducted myself as a judge the last 6 or 7 years, our Akron Bar Association rated me excellent, which is the highest ranking, so I was happy to receive that.
Great.
And I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Well, I should mention, by the way, that I am married to my wife, Diana, if you want me to say that. She's the clerk of the Barberton Municipal Court, and we have 2 boys. Joshua, who's 25, and a graduate of the University of Akron Sports Management Program, worked at Firestone Country Club. And our youngest, Alex, is 22. He's a baseball player and a biochemistry major at Hiram College over in Portage County.
Great. Yeah, definitely want to get that in.
Yes, absolutely.
Don't be in trouble afterwards. Sounds good. You're going over your extensive experience there, and you kind of touched on it, but I'm going to circle back here just so you can explain to the residents and the voters what exactly the 9th District Court of Appeals does.
Well, and just a real big overview, or a real quick overview of how the court system works in Ohio. So first, when you file a case, you go to the municipal court or one of the common pleas court, and that's where they'll hear trials on cases. In the vast majority of cases, there's a few extraordinary writs to go to the Supreme Court, but that's not what most people see in life. So if you have a divorce, you go to domestic relations court. You file your courts there. You go to have someone pass away in your family, again, you go to probate court. You have an eviction, you go to small claims court. If you're charged with speeding, you go to municipal court. After those cases, and once they're decided, if you think there was something handled improperly, then you go to the Court of Appeals and you appeal the case to the Court of Appeals and argue, did the trial court follow the rules? Did they follow the Constitution? Were the proceedings appropriate? So that's what we do at the Court of Appeals. Those are the decisions that are made there.
Okay. And what would you feel are the greatest obstacles that face the judicial system at this time?
Well, one, I think, is perception. I don't think it faces the system itself, but the perception that we should be policy-oriented in our decision-making. So, for instance, if you heard about it, the Supreme Court cases came out this year. There are a lot of big cases dealing with abortion rights and religious liberty and gun cases. And the commentary, when you read it in the paper, isn't did they get the law right, but did they get the policy right? I'm pro-choice. I don't like Dobbs. I'm pro-life. I like it. The important thing for us is to understand as judges that our job is to follow the law and the Constitution and interpret that the way it's written. But people don't understand that. People expect us to say, well, this is how I feel personally, therefore I should rule that way. And that's not what we do. Mm-hmm. And when they come to court, they feel like this is, in domestic relations court, this is justice, this is right. My husband left me, my wife did this. What is important to us is following the laws and dividing property. It's not a who did right, who did wrong. It's just following the law. So I think that expectation the public has and getting the public to understand that's our job in our system, is to follow the law and not just do what we think is right.
And I think that's a key point a lot of people don't know because they're fortunate enough not to have to step foot in a courtroom, so they may not know that these things. But the fact that it's not that you just go in as a person and say, well, this is how I feel about a certain issue. You are kind of regulated by policy and statutes that are in place, and then that's how you try to make your judgment, correct?
Absolutely. And another good point you brought up is we tend to forget in the court system. Thankfully, most people don't come and see us. Mm-hmm. They're not experienced with the court system. They don't know what we're doing, which is wonderful because people shouldn't come there. And then the other thing when we're in court is to understand what people are there. They're very often intimidated. They don't go to court very much. They don't understand the proceedings. There's someone up there above them in a black robe. Mm-hmm. And that can be intimidating. To make sure, I know that from practice, to make sure people are comfortable is very important to me when I appear in court. Mm-hmm. To make sure they're comfortable with the process, they know what's going on. They believe that they're going to be listened to and heard, so make sure that the decision is going to go in the way we can go under the law, but at least understand why we're doing it and explain that process to them. And
I think that's a great point. How important is it, because in the 9th Court of Appeals, that's kind of their, because of the court process, as you explained earlier, it's kind of their last chance to be heard on a matter through appeals. I mean, I know it can go higher, but for the most part, most of the cases, that's that person's last chance. So how important is it, as you just mentioned a moment ago, to have that relationship to where that person feels comfortable, that they feel at the end of the day they were at least heard on their matter, whether they win or lose in the decision?
Well, I think it's very important. It's very important for our citizens to know that the court system is giving them a fair hearing. Mm-hmm. It's very important that they understand that what they have to say has been listened to, that they've had a chance for the rule of law to apply to their case. When we can, to write clear, concise decisions that explain to them why we're doing what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And if they don't like that, then theoretically they can go to the legislature and try to make that change and look into that if that's something that's important to them.
And I know you touched on this as you kind of described your background a little bit, but I want to expand on that a little bit, is what kind of leadership skills or traits that you think you bring to the table that maybe your opponent doesn't?
Well, as well as being an attorney, I didn't touch on this, I'm sorry. I was served on a number of boards during my time in practice. The Barberton Library Board of Trustees, where I was a member and president. The Barberton Area Salvation Army. The Downtown Barberton Inc., the Summit County Facility Review Boards. And I think in doing those, a number of other things, when you serve on boards, you begin to understand the importance of listening to the views and concerns of other people. It's not just about what you have to say. And finding some way to conciliate those and bring them together is very important when you're on those boards. When you start out, and I was a young attorney, I'll admit, I thought I knew everything. I was 27 years old. I thought I knew everything about the world. And you start doing things and you understand you don't. When you serve on those boards, it's nice to learn those things. So it's nice to harmonize, to listen to what everybody had to say, try to bring those cases to resolution. And I think it's really important on the trial court, particularly, to do that, to sit down and make sure people understand their settlement and they buy into it. There's less of that at the Court of Appeals, but it's still important. And I still think having those skills where you sit on a 3-judge panel to make decisions, you don't make your own decisions, to help work with and conciliate and listen to what other people's concerns are, help bring all those and harmonize them together is important to do.
And how would you feel for the residents and viewers of our area? I'll expand on the next question, but for the Medina County area, how would you feel they would benefit from you being on the bench?
Well, I am very serious. All my life going through the law school and everything else, very important to me to follow the rule of law. The rule of law is vital to our society. To understand that what is going to happen in your outcomes in your cases, in your lives, as you enter into a contract, as you deal with the police, that the rule of law will be followed, that will make sure that the Constitution, statutes are followed. I think that's very important. It sets a consistency for society. It gives people a feeling like they're being heard and they're being treated equally. Because if we don't follow the rule of law, then it becomes might versus right, for want of a better way of saying it, and that's important. And I will promise the citizens I will do that. I'll follow the rule of law. I'll make sure that's applied here in Medina and throughout the 4 counties that are part of the district. Yeah,
and that's what I was just going to touch on next with the 4 counties in the district. Do you feel, as you've been out and campaigning and looking at things, do they all have the same concerns in regards to the 9th District Court of Appeals in Lorain as they do here in Medina or Summit and Wayne?
They're similar. They're similar concerns, and I think there's generally the people you speak with want to make sure the law is followed, want to make sure they're treated well. There is some discussion, and maybe a little more in Summit County, about concerns about police issues and the way that's handled, more so than I've heard in Lorain, Medina, and Wayne because of things that happened this summer. They're concerned a little bit more about that. But generally the concerns are the same. They want to make sure that rules are followed, that the government's holding the standard they're supposed to be held to, and that we follow the law and the Constitution.
Great. Again, speaking with Scot Stevenson, candidate for the Court of Appeals 9th District. I want to thank you for answering the questions I had for you, but I want to give you the opportunity, in case there's something I didn't touch on that you wanted to bring to the voters' attention, I want to turn the mic over to you and give you that opportunity.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. The most important thing to me in this race is I want to explain to people, that I've done throughout my time, that I am a public servant. My job when I'm a judge is to make sure I speedily resolve your decisions and make sure that you are treated fairly when you come to court. Too often when I practice law and go throughout the state, I saw judges who said it's my court. It's not the judge's court. The court belongs to our citizens. It belongs to you to make sure our decisions are handled fairly and quickly. So I'll make sure if elected, I will do that. And if I'm not elected, I'll continue to serve in my post to make sure I do it there.
Well, as Scot Stevenson, the candidate for the 9th District Court of Appeals, I want to thank you for, 1, being part of the political process, and 2, I want to wish you the best of luck this November.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.